We had participants that asked for a recording, so
great.
It will be helpful.
So it's going now. So I'm hesitant to say this. Merhaba. I need to learn some more Turkish, but thank you everyone for joining, and thanks for some people that turn their camera on. It's nice to see some faces. I'm also really excited that there seems to be a good crowd, and so hopefully there's a lot of questions and feedback at the end of this. I would say as I'm talking, feel free to add questions to the chat, and I can answer them as we go or all at the very end. And so my name is Josh Nicholson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Scite. Our email is below, hi@scite.ai. Our Twitter is @Scite. And if you want to reach me directly, it's Josh, J-O-S-H, @Scite.ai. And so today I'm going to show a few slides and then walk you through a demo of how Scite can help with your research and really, help anyone, whether you're a biomedical researcher or a social scientist, or even a non-scientist, and also whether you're a student or a tenured professor. And so I like to start these by reminding us all that what we do as researchers, librarians, administrators is pretty amazing, right? I know there's a lot of struggles with publishing, with getting funding, with different meetings and so on and so forth. But the research you're doing will be published ultimately, and it will exist for hundreds of years. It will better inform future developments in the internet, hopefully more life-saving vaccines if there's more pandemics, the ability to have virtual conferences like this. All this was made possible by research. And so research touches all aspects of our lives, not just biomedical literature, but policy, government, social sciences, etc. And while it's amazing, there are challenges. So there's a lot of information nowadays. There's about 2 papers coming out per minute, just in biomedical literature alone and in PubMed. And so this is likely an underestimate, and there's probably much more. And then in addition to this, there's challenges around reproducibility. And so large pharma, 2 large pharma companies looked at major cancer studies, tried to reproduce the studies in-house over the course of a decade, and found that more often than not, they couldn't. And so how do we know what is reliable? How do we know what to build our own research on? And then how do we keep up with the amount of literature? There's so much of it. And so we built Scite to address these, to make research more reliable, to make it more understandable. And so there's a lot of interdisciplinary research. How do you understand all these different fields? How can you contextualize this? And then ultimately, we built Scite, as the name suggests, to introduce the next generation of citation. So not just something that's used for bibliometricians and ranking, but can really be used to enrich all of research. And so this is Scite, and I would encourage you all to go to Scite and sign up. And some of you are on free trials, but regardless, anyone that just signs up gets a free week of trial. You can explore this and test it as I walk through this. And so the way that I like to show Scite is to show the world as it exists without Scite, and then to show it through the lens of Scite. And so this is my PhD work, or the main study coming out of my PhD. There I am. My work was looking at chromosome segregation defects in human cells. I did my PhD at Virginia Tech. We collaborated with the hospital in Portugal as well as the lab at the NIH. It was published in eLife. It's been cited 61 times and then viewed 11,000 times. And so I point these things out because this is generally what we look at when we look at a scientific publication. Where was it published? Is it in a prestigious journal? Do I know this journal? Does it have a strong reputation? Is it in Scopus? Is it in other indices? And then similar types of questions with the authors. Do I know them? Do I trust their reputation? Are these universities prestigious? Again, do I trust these? And then some metrics. How many times has this article been cited? How many times has it been viewed? And then increasingly, how many times has it been shared on social media via altmetrics and things like this? And so what we want to change is how this is used. And so I'd say in today's world, most of the times you just look at a citation, right? And a high number is good and a low number is not so good. If, however, you click this citation number, it may bring you to a Scopus or a Web of Science or a traditional citation index. And what you'll see is a list of citing articles. And so here is various titles of articles that have cited my work, some from 2022, some from 2021. Maybe you'll read a few of these titles And maybe you'll open 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, but in general, you're not going to open 62 articles when you look at my work, simply because that would take hours of time. It would be impractical for anyone to open all citing articles to see what they say about an article. And to me, that is a missed opportunity, because these articles, by definition, are related to mine. They're citing it. Maybe some of them provide very important interpretations. Maybe some provide competing evidence, criticisms. Maybe some build off this work in an interesting way. You don't know this information. And so you usually miss what all these different articles are saying. And they could be saying very valuable stuff that could really change how you interpret the study that you're reading. And so Scite aims to fix that, to make that information digestible, understandable, and more useful than just a number. And so we have a browser extension, which you can see over here. That browser extension shows, again, the citation number broken down by citation statements. So the number of supporting citations, mentioning citations, and contrasting. And as you can see, there's 69 papers citing my work. So this is more than what eLife displays. And then there's actually more citation statements. And the reason for that is one paper can cite another multiple times. So it can cite it in the introduction section, again in the discussion, and again in the results section. And so we capture citation statements. And I'll show you exactly what these look like. But I would point this out and say, this is, again, a great way to get started with Scite. It's a free browser extension for Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Microsoft Edge, and it will show you our information virtually anywhere you're reading a scientific article online, whether that's Google, Google Scholar, publishers, Elsevier, Springer Nature. It shows not only on the side, it also shows next to references, it shows in search results. And this will provide, this easy way to kind of say, here's this article that I see without Scite, and then through the lens of Scite, I can see, oh, there's one article that's contrasting this and 9 that are supporting this. And so what you can do is click this browser extension. It brings you over to Scite. And what you'll see is up top, the same basic information as the article. So the title, the authors, the abstract, and then a link back to the full text. And then if you scroll down, you can see what separates Scite from other tools. And that is that we show this excerpt of text, which we call the citation context, from this citing article. And so here's an article that cites my work. It's 3 years later. And this is exactly how they cite this work. So it says, in agreement with previous work, and then cites Nicholson et al., 2015, the trisomy clone showed similar aberrations, albeit to a lesser extent, supplemental figure S2b. And so this excerpt of text was taken from the full text of this article and appears in the results section. And so now you're not just seeing a list of citing articles, you're seeing exactly how they cite this article. And so this will help say, okay, here's related work. And so maybe if I wanted to cite Nicholson et al., now I also want to cite this because it shows related studies. You can also use Scite to better understand things. So what if I filter down to citations that appear in the discussion section? Now you'll see papers that cite my study in multiple places, sometimes self-cite, sometimes not. And you'll be able to see how are they discussing this work. And so what is the key thing that they're finding and how have they interpreted it? And that can be used to inform my own writing, my own research, and to see all these different viewpoints on one paper. And so that is really important. And I think this is one thing that a lot of students use Scite for, is to say, here's what experts say about the literature. Now I can also use that interpretation to inform and better help my own writing. And so the ability to filter by where a citation appears over here is a very powerful way to look at, an article cited in the introduction section versus an article cited in the discussion section. In addition to this, you might have noticed that we also have citation types. And so here is a supporting citation. And the supporting citation is done by a deep learning model. And it looks at this text to make that assessment. So in this case, it says in agreement. So there's support. And then it mentions my study. And then it also indicates that there's evidence. And so we're looking for supporting or contrasting evidence, not enough to say, I like this study, but really I found something similar or I found something different to make that assessment. The model shows how confident it is in making that classification. So it's 93%. And so it's not perfect. And sometimes it can be very difficult. And sometimes it can be even wrong. And so if we get it wrong, we allow users to say, this doesn't look like it's supporting, it actually looks like it's mentioning, this is why. That is then reviewed by two humans and either accepted or rejected. And so that is a powerful way to look at any study and basically see, has this been tested by subsequent studies? And if it has it been supported by those studies, or are there different claims in these studies? Beyond filtering by where it appears and if it provides supporting or contrasting evidence, you can also search these citation statements. And so if you search the citation statements, it will now search all these different citation statements to this article and match based in the citation statement or in the title or in the metadata, so author names. And this is useful, say, if you're looking at chromosome segregation and cytokinesis failure, but not in human cells, but in yeast. So say you wanted to see if anyone's mentioned yeast, you search that, and then it highlights this. And you can see that this article is talking about my study, which is the blue one, but then also about studies where this was done in yeast. And so it says, moreover, since aneuploidy has been shown to cause genetic and chromosomal instability in both yeast and mammalian cells. And so mine is the blue one, and these co-citations find the same thing that I found in human cells, but in yeast. And so this is not only a way to look at how an individual article has been cited, but also to find co-citations and see related work. Again, by looking at the citation context. And what you can do is hover over any citation in these, and it will show you the article. You can go to the full text, or you can go to the Scite report itself. And so you can see, again, these three that were cited with mine have also been highly cited. This one has 302 citations and 22 supporting citations. And then this one has 110 citations and 9 supporting. And so really, this will help you kind of assess and look at this claim, both in yeast and human cells, and say, there's a lot of support for this. And here are some studies showing this, and then I can go deeper and find even more. Backing off this, you can organize these citation statements by the newest publication, by the most supported paper that's looking at this, as well as the oldest one. You can also do this similarly with the year date. And so if you go here, it will restrict it to only recent citations. The green highlights supporting, the blue is mentioning. And this is a good way, again, to look at these articles in different ways. You can filter them by whether it's an article, a preprint, if it appears in a book or guidelines or a lot of different other article types. And then you can filter also by self-cites versus independent cites. So if I'm supporting my work, maybe that's not the same thing as if an independent group that I don't know is supporting this work. Expanding this, you can see who cites this work the most. And so this is a collaborator of ours. This was my PhD advisor. And then you can see which journals are citing this work the most as well. And so maybe you're deciding where you want to submit, and you found the study that's very similar to yours. Maybe you want to look at that article as a place of submission, but these ones could also be very relevant places of submission. So MBOC, genes in development, cell cycle, or developmental biology per cell. You can download all this information into CSV if you want to use it for some other purpose. You can also visualize this through a citation visualization. And so this visualization shows my article in the center, this node, and it has arrows coming into it and arrows going out from it. And this really represents the conversation that my paper is having with other papers. And so here is, my study that is supporting Lind et al. And so if you click this edge, it becomes yellow, and it will show you what does Nicholson et al. Say about Lind et al. And so there is Lind, and there's my study. And you can see that it's talking about this and suggesting that it's supporting. Going back to this, you can click on this and then see, okay, here's one, Geom et al. And the arrow's going now towards Nicholson et al. And now you can see what does that say about this article and why is it supporting. So this is a powerful way to look at really the conversation that's happening amongst papers. You can use this information to make visualizations for presentations or papers. You can scroll in, you can scroll out. You're able to change this information if you want to look at a grid. The size of the node will relate to the number of citations. So this is a highly cited article in this field. You can change all these different organizations depending upon what you want to do. Some of this will show hierarchy, and so this will help with time layout. And you can see, these ones are coming later than mine. And then these are the ones I cited. And what you can also do is, going back here, is expand this, not just to show supporting or contrasting cites, but to show mentioning cites as well. And so this now shows all the citations. And as you can see, it gets to be a bit more noisy, but it is still quite useful. And from this, you can choose individual nodes that might look interesting. And maybe I'll turn this off for a second. You can choose individual nodes that look interesting. And from there, you can expand them further. And so here is this node that I clicked. And now you'll see a network that shows 2 different papers. And this can help you find co-cited papers, so papers that are cited by both of these papers. And again, you can choose to continue to expand this to multiple papers to look at a field of research. And so this is taking what we've done on the Scite report and allowing you to visualize this and find, these interesting connections amongst different papers. And again, this is defaulted to only show supporting or contrasting. You can change it and to show mentioning. But sometimes this can be quite large and maybe, take the site down. And so this, will only be useful in so many ways. Otherwise, it starts to become a bit noisy here. So this has, been how we have really kind of advanced citations to go from just a list of citing articles to actually showing how an article has been cited. And so some of you might be wondering, how do you do this? So in order to do this, we need access to full text publications in order to extract this information out. We work with publishers to gain access to them. Once we have access, we generally get a PDF or XML. PDFs come in 2 columns, single column, sometimes more than that. The citations or references can look like this. Sometimes it can be just superscript numbers. Sometimes it can be brackets. So there's a lot of machine learning that goes into identifying the in-text citation. In fact, there's 11 machine learning models with 20 to 30 features each used to just extract this information. Once we have that in-text citation here identified, we then have to match that to the reference in the reference section, which is a list of articles. We take that information and then match that against metadata from the publishers. So in our case, Crossref or DataCite. And so there's a lot of work that goes into just extracting out this citation context. Once we have that citation context, we then have a deep learning model that will look at the text around this and classify it as supporting, contrasting, or mentioning. That deep learning model has been trained on roughly 40,000 manually annotated citation statements, meaning we as humans read roughly 40,000 of these different citation statements and said, okay, these authors are indicating that they support this paper that they're citing, that they contrast it, and if it was neither of those, we would just call that mentioning. We've done that across a diversity of different disciplines where there's been at least 2 different people having to agree on each annotation. That has gone into feeding this deep learning model that has basically a library of over 1 million different articles, so it's used to the scientific language. And then that is tested against this holdout set of 10,000 manually annotated citation statements. And so this is, this took us years to build up this training data. And if you want to see more information on that, we actually published a paper, and that paper can be seen under our resources section. If you go to How Scite Works, this will show you our work that we published on the topic, and we'll really tell you about the details, the background, other attempts at doing this, the precision scores, what our pipeline looks like. There's a table that will show examples of what an agreement, a supporting citation is, a contrasting, and then sometimes when they're close, but they're not actually that. And so this is really useful if you want to get into the details of how Scite works, look at precision scores, and things like this. And so coming back to Scite, as I mentioned, we work with publishers. So to date, we have signed over 20 different indexing agreements with major publishers around the world, some of these quite recent that are not even listed here. We have analyzed 28 million full text articles and extracted nearly 1 billion citation statements from these. And so this is a lot. We've also, extracted and analyzed citation statements from Dergi Park, and so Turkish articles as well. And so while that's impressive, it's not everything. And so what do we do when we don't have access to a full text article? And so in this case, you can see citation statements have been extracted from all these different articles. But in some cases, we won't have access. And so what we do is show a traditional citation. And so here is a group of articles where we haven't been able to extract out a citation statement, but we can show the reference. And so we have a very comprehensive overall citation record, similar to Scopus, Web of Science, and these tools. But then we have nearly 1 billion citation statements, and these tools have none. And so we really want to change the use of these tools from just something that administrators or bibliometricians would use to something that students can use every day, whether they're reading a preprint or an article. And so it can help with discovery, it can help with assessment, and it can really help you better understand various topics. And so what I've shown to this point is how has an article been cited, but what about a researcher? And so you can click researchers' names, and it will open up a researcher profile. It will show the number of publications they have, the number of citation statements they've received, the number of citation statements they've given, how this looks. So again, how they've been cited, also how they cite others, where they've been, what different universities they've been, what is their most supported work or their most cited work. In this case, it's the same thing. And again, you can scroll through and open up these different site reports to see what does the literature say about these different things. You can also set an alert. So maybe there's a researcher that you're really interested in and you want to see when there's new citations to their work or new publications from them. You can set an alert next to this. And you can also do this individually for individual articles as well. As you can see, these affiliations can also be clicked, and this will take you to a custom dashboard, but you can also look at this at the affiliation list. And so here's one way of looking at Medipol, Istanbul University. So you can search basically any university there is. And what you can do is click this, and what it will show you is the total number of articles that we can identify publicly, the breakdown of these articles and how they've been cited. So how many have supporting citations, how many are mentioning, how many are contrasting, whether there's any editorial notices, so are any retracted, have any been withdrawn, or if there's errata. And then something that we call the Scite index. And the Scite index is pretty simple. It just shows supporting cites over supporting plus contrasting cites. So it goes from 0 to 1. And so 1 would be all supporting. In this case, there's 0.88. You can look at this in 2-year or 5-year window, and you can see how this has changed over time. So there seems to be a little bit more supporting citations occurring for publications here. And then if you scroll down, you'll see who's published the most within this university. And you can scroll on this list. And again, you can click on any of these researchers' names and look at their publication profile. And then if you continue, you can see here is the most supported work from this university, but there's one contrasting citation. Maybe you want to see the most supporting work where there's no contrasting citation, so you can change that filter, and it will show you this article, Determinants of Dividend Policy, a panel of data analysis for Turkish listed firms. And again, you can click this information, it brings you over to Scite, and you can better see how that information has been received. As I mentioned, we do primarily utilize English articles, but not just English articles. So if you scroll down and see unclassified, you'll start to see various articles in different languages, in this case, Turkish, but also in Russian and Japanese and Chinese and Spanish and Portuguese. We are unable to classify this as supporting or contrasting, but this is still very valuable because you can organize and read this article. And so our aim is to look at all research articles and provide this conversation so you can see how an article has been cited. So what we've shown is how an article has been cited, how a person's been cited, how a university's been cited. You can also do the same for journals. And so if you click on a journal name, you'll see, again, the same information, this custom dashboard. And again, you can set an alert. What if you're interested in a topic that is not predefined like an article or a journal? Maybe you're interested in Turkish obesity rates. You can search this in 2 different ways. So if you search here in papers, this will match based on the title as well as the abstract. And you can see it identifies 211 search results. From this, you can say, I want to see only papers that have citations. You can select that and it will then narrow it. And here's all papers that have supported or have citations. You can say, I want to see only the most supported work. And maybe I'll scan this and see, okay, 7 supporting citations, 8 supporting citations. There's only 6 of these that have that many supporting citations. And so there's a good way to kind of control and see what is the most supported work in this research area. You can also scroll through and see, where has there been some debate. And as you can see, this one has 20 supporting citations and 7 contrasting. So it's not that this is a bad study, but this is healthy to have debate there. From this, you can define whatever criteria you think is important. And maybe I'll go here. And you can do a couple things. So you can expand this and see who has this information. So who has the most supported work? So here's different authors on this. If you select this, you can click their name and go to their profile. You can also select next to their name. And what this will do is show this researcher's work over here. It will also show who they've co-authored with. So this is a list of co-authors that has published on this topic. So again, selecting from this shows 27 different search results where there's at least 2 supporting citation statements. If you open up affiliations, you can find where these researchers come from. And again, you can narrow this down by clicking here or selecting that. You can see if there's any retractions. And then you can choose to narrow this further if you want to see work that was very recent from 2017 to 2020. And then sometimes this will change which authors there are and to find upcoming authors. From this, you can not only see kind of which is the most supported, the most cited work, but you can save this search. And so you can define what is important for you, whether that's highly supported, highly contrasted. And you'll get email alerts when there's new citations to these publications or new publications as well. You can also create a custom dashboard based on this information. So let me make it a little bit bigger. If you hit create custom dashboard, again, you're prompted to turn on the email alerts. If you then search or hit create, it will create this dashboard that looks very much like that university dashboard and the journal dashboard, but will show you this information for this custom topic. And so this is useful if you have a specific topic in mind that you want to look at and then want to better understand it at a global level, see who's publishing in this area, what is the most supported work, what is the most cited work, and then to stay on top of it via email alerts. And again, this information can be viewed internally, can be shared with collaborators. You can also download this as a CSV if you'd like. Continuing on, as you may have seen, we have the ability to search papers. We also have the ability to search citation statements. And so our citation statement search is a feature that allows you to not just search based on title or abstract, but to search the entire database of citation statements. And so again, we'll use this search if you're searching Turkish obesity rates. And what this will allow you to do is to match not just on title or abstract and say, here's articles that I need to open and read, but to really look at what does the literature say about these things directly. And so sometimes you can get the answer that you're looking for directly. In this case, it's talking about, this Turkish diabetes epidemiology study in 2020, talking about, 7.2% of diabetes, and then, different obesity rates here. And so again, you can find different articles, what have they said, and sometimes you'll find, here's a different estimate of that. And from this, oftentimes you'll get the results directly. And so this is a quick way to find answers in some way to the questions that you have on almost any topic. It can be Turkish obesity rates, it can be Williamsburg, which is where I am, rent. And if you search that, it will talk about, Williamsburg, and it'll talk about rent increasing in various areas. So here's talking about rent increase between 2003 and 2007. It can also be used for prostate cancer and adverse effects. And it really will show you this conversation and the ability to look at this. You can also look at antibody reagents. So if you search antibody names, you can see here's different publications using this antibody from Abcam. Here's how they've used it. So they've used this one, used it in 1 to 200 dilution. And then in other cases, this one used it in a 1 to 100 dilution. And so some of these things are very important for the success of an experiment. All these different filters will show who's publishing on this topic, which this looks like over time. You can filter by different sections. So I just want to see this discussion happening in the discussion section. You can use an advanced search. And so you can say Turkey obesity. I guess it's not a good search. And this will match exactly on this search. And so the quotes will give you an exact match on these different things, and it will allow you to narrow it. Or you can say, Turkish obesity rate. From this, you can also not only see who's publishing on this topic, where they're publishing. So here's the journals doing that, where they come from as well. But you can also create this executive summary. And so this is one thing that librarians really like because it allows you to kind of look at any topic and get a high-level overview of this information. And so this will download a nice PDF for you. It will show you, once it opens, it will show you the search that you ran. So here's the search term, Turkish obesity rate. Here's when you ran it. Here's how many different expert analyses and opinions we identify on that topic. Here's the most cited article. In this case, it's also the most supported. And so it shows the most cited article in this area matching your search. And we'll also show who has published a lot in this area. And so this researcher has 38 publications on this. But if you want to see who has the most supported work, and so this shows papers with at least 5 supporting citations, you can then see researchers that are not just publishing the most, but also the most supported, where these researchers come from, and then what is being said about this. And so these are the most relevant papers, and we'll show you some examples of various relevant citation statements. These ones are the most recent publications. And then if you continue down, you'll see the most supported publications and the most contrasted. And so this is a good way to kind of get an executive summary on almost any topic, see who's publishing the most on this, who has the most supported work, what is being discussed in this area. And that is a good place to start and then go deeper on different things. And so I see a lot of questions. So maybe I'll pause for a second and open some of these so I can answer some of them. No, they're in Turkish. So we'll continue on and then go towards the end.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
So this has been primarily, this next generation of citations, showing the citation context, where it's cited, and then showing different citation types, applied to articles, applied to people, applied to universities, journals, and then specific topics. What about if you're interested in looking at the references of something you've already written? And so we have what we call the reference check. Our reference check is aimed at helping researchers make sure that the references they're using are reliable. Are they sound? Has there been a reference that's been contrasted that you're unaware of? Has there been a reference that's been retracted that you're unaware of? And so there's this article that I'm trying to open, which is going slow. So here is, if it opens. Not, I think I have it downloaded. No, okay, so here's an article in Frontiers in Psychology published in November of 2020. And so I'm showing you this article because this article references some problematic references. And I'll show you how that can help you avoid doing the same thing. And so if you download this PDF, and I would emphasize this works for not just published articles, but it works for manuscripts that you're working on in process. And I'm sorry, this is going slow. So I don't know why. Come back to Scite. There it is. Go to the reference check. What you can do here is upload any PDF that looks like a scholarly document. So an essay that you're working on, an internal document, your thesis, your manuscript that you're getting ready to submit. And if you choose this, you can take that, hit generate report. What we'll do here is give this power to the users. What we're doing millions of times with published articles, you can now do for an individual article. So we're extracting out this references and then comparing them to our data. And so from this PDF, we identify 41 references. We flag that 2 of them have some editorial concern. And so in this case, because it was published, we could also identify this metadata. If you scroll down, you can see here's the different references used. And so you can organize this by where they appear in the paper. So this is the location in the paper. If there is some editorial concern, we bump that up because we think that's something you should check out first. So what you can see is this is one reference that Frontiers article is using. It was actually retracted in 2013. And so here is a paper from 2020 citing a study that has nearly been retracted for almost a decade. And maybe that's okay because maybe they're discussing the retraction. But in this case, you can see that's not the case. So it says, second, life satisfaction can be influenced by objective social context through a more unconscious path with little conscious attention or monitoring. And so they're citing work that has been shown to be fraudulent and was retracted nearly a decade ago as if it's still reliable. And that happens a lot in the literature. We actually have a Twitter bot that tweets out every time that happens. And it makes sense because we're all, working with PDFs. We read a PDF, we add it to our folders, we add it to our reference manager, and then we don't get that updated information. And so this reference check can help you avoid citing retracted studies after they've been retracted, which maybe you should no longer be relying upon. But it can also help you check how others have cited the same studies that you're looking at. And so here's another reference that's been used. This one has 101 citations, 4 supporting, 2 contrasting. This does not mean that this is a bad study because it has contrasting citation statements. What it means is maybe I want to check out and see what these citation statements say because maybe I missed something when I was doing my literature review. And so this will allow you to look at studies that contradict the findings of Schwartz and Hartfer, and maybe you want to add that as a reference to your article. Maybe it's such a strong contradiction that you no longer trust citing Schwartz and Hartfer because you no longer believe it, so maybe you want to remove it. And similar, here's another one that says contrary to previous findings, they found some different inequality. And so this is very context dependent upon what you want to do with it. Maybe you want to address it, maybe you want to add these references, but it's pretty quick to check how others have cited the same references you're using and to make sure you're not missing anything. And so that's useful if you're collaborating and one person's done most of the references and you want to see that information. It's also useful to really kind of sanity check and make sure that the foundation of your study, your references, are what you think they are. And so that's a powerful way of looking at these different things. In addition to this, we have a badge that is available for university repositories, and we actually are live on, repository. We're live on various university repositories, even Turkish repositories, and maybe I'm not gonna be able to find a good example of one of these. So I'll show you the badge. So we have a badge that can be embedded into different repositories, publisher sites, personal sites. It's free to embed. It's generally pretty easy. You can customize it if you want to show it horizontally. It will show like this. You can make it, you can show type labels, you can show it smaller, and then it's just pasting this following snippet if you own the web page onto it. So this is useful for adding to other tools. It's now live on millions of scientific articles directly. And so we are live on, yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. I put the Hacettepe link for the badge on the chat box.
Yeah, so here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here's an example where you can see this information is directly live on other on a university repository, and you can see they've kept other citations, which is fine because these other citations generally just show a list and will provide more contextual information. And again, they've chose to show these type labels, and then you click through and see what do these different citing articles say. This is live not only on university repositories, but also on the version of record. And so here it is for Royal Society next to the citation information. You'll see it here, and then you can click through and again look at that. And so this is not just something that we're doing alone. This is now live on millions of articles. It's live on arXiv. And really, I view it as the next generation of citations. And to me, it's almost inevitable because I think it provides this extra contextual information. And so here it is on arXiv. You can see this where you turn this on and it will show you this information, whereas otherwise you see no information. And so this contextual information to me are like glasses where you see a lot more, you see a lot more clearly, and it's pretty easy to do, right? You don't have to change your entire workflow to use Scite. You can use the browser extension. You can also use it then individually. One other thing that I'll conclude on, and then happy to take questions, is that Scite can also be useful for finding studies or testing claims. And so here is a preprint that was tweeted out on September 29th of 2021. So pretty recently. This preprint is pretty short. It has one figure. Maybe we should just open this. It has one figure. It has about 9 references. It has actually been cited, so our browser extension will show on preprints as well. If you look at this PDF, it looks okay, right? It's pretty small. If it opens, so it's not very long. I don't know why it's only showing half the page, but that's fine. It has one. It has 11 references and then one figure. And so is there something missing from this, right? Is there no significant difference between viral load and between vaccinated and unvaccinated? And so what you can do with Scite is highlight a claim or highlight an individual term. And if you have the browser extension downloaded, you can right click on this and then search for that claim in Scite. And so this is a good way to say, here's something someone said. What does the literature say about that? Are they right? Are there competing studies that they didn't reference? And you can, again, scroll through these things, and it'll talk about difference in viral vaccinated load. You can scroll down. Here's this one article that they're talking about. And if you continue to scroll down, and this is an actual personal use case of mine, what you'll see is a study that actually does find a difference. And so here is a study talking about swabs between vaccinated healthcare workers and unvaccinated healthcare workers. And it found a statistically significant difference between those. And so that is competing evidence that you can find where there wasn't a citation, there wasn't a reference, but there was a study saying something about this. And so Scite is very good for asking kind of a literature question and looking at this through the citation statement search. And so with that, maybe I'll pause so there's enough room for questions or comments as well. So please feel free to ask them in the chat, or I guess also happy to have you turn off the mic and ask them as well.
Thanks Josh. Herkese tekrardan teşekkürler vakit ayırdığınız için. Eğer sorularınız olursa lütfen chat tarafından yazarsanız biz kendisine iletiriz. İngilizce, Türkçe hiçbir şekilde fark etmez. Tekrar vakit ayırdığınız için teşekkür ederiz. Josh, I actually have a question. Would you mind showing the sign up page, logging out and sign up page?
Yeah. So
we had a question during
there's a few things I can also show.
presentation.
So once you sign up, there's actually a lot more that we're showing. So here is my profile. You can see you have a ORCID that you can sync with it. Here's my publications. You can visualize this, your own author profile. So if you sign up and claim your articles, you can actually look at a visualization of them. And so here's, multiple articles. Again, this is the main one that I showed, but here's other ones, and here's how they relate to one another. You can look at metrics. So this is one thing that we're starting to add: the number of self-citations, the percentage of citations I've made to open access articles, percentage of citations I've made from open access articles. So how many I've made, how many cited me, journals citing me the most, authors citing me the most, affiliation citing the most, papers I've supported the most, and then papers I've contrasted the most. And so this is one thing that is actually very recent, and we're starting to build out and show more information to help authors look at how they've been cited, but also how they cite others. You can claim papers here. Again, you can search for them and then claim them, or you can sync your ORCID and do that automatically. You can create a public profile if you want to share that. We have a feed that is coming. So this is to supplement email alerts. We're creating this feed so you can come to Scite and see, here's this new information. Your dashboards will show here, your reference checks will show here, and then you can delete these at any time in your save search, alerts, etc. And so to get all this stuff, you simply need to sign up. And so sign up will show like this. Actually, it will not. It will show like this. So here is, you enter your full name, you enter your email, and then you create a password. And so it's pretty simple: your name, email, and password. You can also sign in with Google. You can sign in with ORCID, or you can sign in with Facebook. We give everyone 7 free days, so there's no credit card. After that, Scite will become restricted in various things you can do. So the amount of reports you can do, the searches you can do, and then you can either subscribe as an individual or you can subscribe as an organization. And hopefully we can work with various organizations to do that. And so it's pretty quick to sign up and test. And again, I would encourage everyone to sign up and test it. We have a bubble down here where you can ask questions for help and say, this is confusing to me, I don't understand that. We will respond generally pretty quickly. We also have a help desk that will say, how are citations classified? I want to use Scite for literature reviews and critical analysis. How does the citation statement work? How do I use the Scite report page? And so those are all very useful for getting started. In addition to this, we also have at the bottom of any page links to our Twitter, which you can follow for new information, also to our YouTube. And our YouTube channel will show previous webinars. So here's a webinar from a graduate student in Spain, various short videos on different facets of Scite. So this is a 2-minute video talking about the Scite browser extension. 2-minute video talking about the site reports, what we call a smart citation, and then previous webinars and other short videos such as visualizations and things like this. And so we really want to help out. So please do sign up. Let us know what is unclear. Let us know if you have questions, and we'll respond quickly to help.
Thanks again, Josh.
Yeah.
I just want to ask if there's any more questions. Eğer sorularınız varsa lütfen chat'e yazmaktan çekinmeyin. Hasretcan Özen galiba soru sormak istiyor. Eğer
hello, is my voice coming?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for presentation. I see that Scite has very useful features and qualities. And apparently Scite relies on the transparency in science and honesty, transparency in science and in articles, as far as these articles are transparent and honest in their work enough, and then Scite works perfectly. But I think the same question must be asked for Scite as well. Does Scite show transparency in his work by making its source codes open?
So yes, if you go to the resource page and you go to how Scite works, again, this will describe in detail about Scite. And then if you go down to GitHub, you can see various data availability. And so you can look at Grobit is an open source tool that we can contribute back to parsing PDFs. Glutton is for matching. And then there's various other classifications. So the code is largely open. It's not open for the website. We could make it open. It's not anything fancy. The training data is not open, and that is simply because we don't want Elsevier or Clarivate to steal it from us. So we want to build, a sustainable business and to use that, but we try to be as open as possible. One thing I can also address to that is most publications that we use are actually not open either. So we have more content that is closed, subscription-based and open access at this point. And that is because we work with publishers to gain access to it. But yeah, you can look at our paper and find relevant links to GitHub. We do also have an API that is open to use for more custom bibliometric analysis, which is available at api.scite.ai/docs. And so we try to be as open as possible, but there are limitations around that. And then some things like the website, we just haven't made open because there hasn't been a real demand or need for that. And it's just kind of a typical website.
And I believe you mentioned the flag classification.
Yeah.
So Scite does accept feedback on its learning model. So if you believe there's some issue, you'll always be able to.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's critical that you can read the citation statement. I think that is a primary value of the context, regardless of any deep learning model, is you can read that yourself and make a judgment. You can then filter where it is, from. There's no advanced machine learning to do that. And then we do try to help in various different ways. And so it's not just, supporting or contrasting, it's, the ability to search things based on relevancy and things like that. And yeah, it'll show you the confidence the model has in making that. And we do allow users to flag this and say, this doesn't look right. In some cases, it can grab a math equation by mistake. And so that can be used, does not reference paper if it's incorrectly. And so, there's challenges to text mining millions of papers, some of these that are over 100 years old. But yeah, we try to be as, transparent and open to everyone. Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Başka sorusu olan var mı? Eğer burada soru sormaya çekinirseniz aşağıda sosyal medya hesaplarınızı ve e-posta hesaplarınızı da paylaşıyoruz. Herhangi bir istediğiniz kanaldan iletişime geçebilirsiniz. Josh'un da bahsettiği gibi lütfen scite.ai'ye girip kayıt olun. Onun da bahsettiği gibi ilk 7 gün ücretsiz. Ayrıca Scite'ın da sosyal medya hesaplarını görebilirsiniz. Güney Hocam teşekkürler. Tekrardan sorusu olan yoksa kapatacağız.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, so here is also, I mean, I'm showing some various social media accounts. This is a fun one, Cite Reference Check at Cite Ref Check. It tweets every time there's a paper citing a retracted paper post-retraction, and you can see this happened 3 hours ago, 4 hours ago. And again, our reference check will help avoid that, both as an individual or as a journal publisher. Thanks, Phil. Is there anything else?
Kayıt YouTube'a yüklenecek. Biz tekrardan webinara kayıt olanların hepsine göndereceğiz. O yüzden birkaç saat izin verirseniz hazırlamamız için vakit alabilir. Ama kayıt olacak. Çağdaş
Is there another question with your hand raised? Or
one second. I'm trying to open. Çağdaş Bey buyurun.
Ben bir soru soracağım.
Tabii.
Üniversite kütüphanelerinin üzerinden bu platforma ulaşabiliyor muyuz?
Şu an halihazırda bazı üniversitelerde deneme erişimi sürdürülüyor. Siz hangi kurumdan acaba bu soruyu soruyordunuz?
İzmir Katip Çelebi Üniversitesi, Atatürk Eğitim Araştırma Hastanesi.
Tamam. Ben bilgilerinizi aldım. Zaten webinara da önceden kayıt olduğunuzu düşünüyorum.
Evet.
Tamam. Biz ilgili arkadaşlarla paylaşıp üniversitenizle iletişime geçebiliriz. Şu an halihazırda sizin üniversitenize böyle bir çalışma yapılmamıştı.
Evet.
Ama bu konuda bir çalışma yapabiliriz.
Tamam, yani hani bu daha çok bizim üniversitelerin kütüphaneleri ilgileniyor. Oradaki kişiler ilgileniyor.
Evet.
Belki oraya ulaşmak mantıklı olabilir diye düşünüyorum.
Hı hı.
Tamam.
Tabii.
Teşekkür ettim. Çok sağ olun.
Sağ olun katılımınız için. Teşekkürler.
Ben teşekkür ediyorum. Teşekkürler tekrardan.
İyi günler. Safiye Hanım, Boğaziçi Üniversitesi veya Gelişim Üniversitesi'nde de şu an yok. Ama dediğimiz gibi sizden gelen bir talep doğrultusunda biz bu konuda